Welcome, 8th grade scientists, to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this because today we're focusing on the absolutely crucial final step of any experiment. You've asked the brilliant questions, you've spent hours in the lab, you've collected all the data, and you've finally found your answer. But guess what? The scientific process doesn't just end when you wash your beakers and clean up your lab station. It actually ends with sharing your hard-earned results. So today, we are going to master the art of scientific communication and integrity.
I want you to just picture something for a second. Imagine you've spent years researching, and you actually found the absolute cure for a terrible disease. It's a total miracle. But there's a catch. You can't explain it to anyone. Or think about Greg Amandel, discovering the very rules of genetics. But imagine if his notes were so confusing that nobody could understand them. What good is that brilliant discovery if it just stays locked inside your head? The truth is, your discovery isn't truly complete until it's communicated clearly to the rest of the world.
Now, there is a foundational biblical principle that perfectly captures the whole essence of scientific communication. Colossians 4:6 says, "Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." Think about it. When food is seasoned with salt, it brings out the absolute best flavor for the person eating it, right? Well, in the exact same way, when you communicate your science, your words need to be perfectly seasoned or tailored so that your specific audience can actually digest and understand your message. You've got to know exactly how to answer everyone, whether that's an expert scientist or just your next-door neighbor.
All right, moving into Section 1, Why Share Your Findings? Let's talk about the ripple effect of communication. We're going to look at the core purpose and the real-world impact of putting your data out there for everyone to see.
Here's the thing you have to remember. Science is definitely not a solo sport. It only grows when it's shared clearly. Try to think of scientific knowledge as this massive, towering brick wall. Every clear, well-communicated experiment you do is a brand new brick added to that wall. But if your results are kind of confusing, or if your steps are incomplete, it's literally like handing the next builder a crumbling brick. Other scientists simply can't verify your work, they can't evaluate your findings, and they definitely cannot build upon the hard work you just finished. So, what does this actually mean for you? Why does this matter? Well, first, it helps others build upon your work and allows peers to verify your results. But honestly, beyond the science itself, communicating effectively actively builds your personal credibility. When you're clear, honest, and organized, people trust you. It marks you as a trustworthy, impactful researcher. You're not just doing some homework assignment to get a grade. You are making sure your work has a real, lasting impact.
Okay, let's dive into Section 2, Structuring Your Scientific Story, or the How of Presentation. A lab report isn't just a boring chore. Think of it as a logical bridge that you are building between your brain and your audience's brain. It is exactly how you tell your scientific story. To build that bridge, you need a rock-solid structure. First, you state your question. What were you even trying to figure out? Second, explain your method. How exactly did you do it, step by step? Third, present your results. What did the data actually say? Fourth, analyze the meaning. Why did the data do that? And finally, give a conclusion. What's the big takeaway here? And hey, you've probably already noticed the pattern. These 5 steps perfectly mirror the scientific method itself. The way you discover the truth is the exact same way you should structure your story to explain it. That brings us to Section 3, choosing the right visuals and really making that data pop. Look, words are powerful, but sometimes looking at a giant wall of numbers can get super overwhelming. Visuals are your best friend in science, but you've got to carefully match the visual to the data so your conclusions make sense instantly. Let's look at a couple examples.
A clear bar graph cuts right through the confusion. If you're trying to compare different categories, let's say the growth rate of 3 different types of plants, a bar chart makes it visually effortless for the reader. They don't have to read a huge paragraph of numbers. They just look at which bar is the tallest. Bam! Instant understanding.
Now, what if you aren't comparing separate categories, but instead you want to look at parts of a whole? Say you're showing the percentage of different gases in a soil sample. Well, that is where pie charts or donut charts come in. They're another amazing tool to visually represent proportions in a split second. The trick here, though, is keeping it clean. Don't clutter your beautiful charts with unnecessary jargon or 50 tiny, completely unreadable slices. Keep it clear and keep it crisp.
On to Section 4, Knowing Your Target Audience and Adapting the Message. So, we've got our structure, and we have our visuals. Now, we need to adapt our approach. Remember that verse from Colossians we talked about? Knowing how to answer everyone literally means knowing exactly who you are talking to. You wouldn't speak to a top-tier PhD scientist the exact same way you'd speak to a kindergartner, right?
When you're presenting to experts, you absolutely want to use detailed terminology and show them all the complex data. They want to see the nitty-gritty details. But when you are presenting to non-scientists, everyday folks, you have to shift your strategy. You use simple, precise language, and you avoid heavy jargon. But hear me clearly on this. We never, ever dumb down the science. No way. We just translate it into clear, everyday language so that absolutely everyone can appreciate the discovery.
Let's look at how the exact same data takes on 3 totally different formats depending on who's receiving it. For a teacher reading a lab report, you include the title, full procedure, and results so they can trace your exact investigative steps. If you're at a science fair, those judges are walking by fast. You need a poster with charts and bullet points because it communicates visually in seconds. And for a community presentation, like if you're explaining water quality to a town meeting, you need simple charts and clear recommendations. You are actively matching your communication style directly to your audience's needs.
All right, Section 5, Integrity and True Education. This is the moral anchor. Honestly, this is the most important part of this entire explainer. You could have the best charts, the perfect structure, and perfectly tailored language, but none of it matters without integrity. It's the unshakable foundation of a true scientific education.
So here is your golden rule as a young scientist. Share your results honestly, even if they are not what you expected. Sometimes you'll spend weeks on an experiment and the result will completely contradict your hypothesis. It might feel like a failure. But listen, manipulating your data just to look right destroys the very purpose of science. Speaking truthfully about what actually happened builds immense trust in science and in your character. An honest, failed experiment is infinitely more valuable to the scientific community than a fake, successful one. Let's quickly recap with your homework checkpoint. I want you to use the exact steps we just covered today to confidently tackle these 5 core questions. List 3 essential parts of a lab report. Explain why those visuals are so incredibly important. Give me a real example of how you'd adjust your language for a younger audience. Tell me how to make a graph super easy to understand. And finally, explain why clear communication builds your personal credibility. You've got all the tools you need right here in this explainer to absolutely ace this.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful philosophy from the heroesmartacademy Godly Learners series. They remind us that education without morality will hurt. Just think about it. What is the point of being highly educated in science, of knowing all the facts and formulas, if we lack the moral compass that guides us to make good choices? If we use our smarts to deceive or to harm, that education is destructive. Romans 8:6-7 promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual and grounded in truth. When you combine your brilliant scientific mind with unshakable, honest morality, you don't just become a great scientist, you become a force for good in the world. So as you head into the lab and prepare to share your next big discovery, I have to ask, how will you use your voice and your integrity to build a better understanding of the world today? Keep exploring, keep sharing truthfully, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.